He says, because you're really,
Did he say
you know,
to
you're not able to. So here,
Aye, the changer.
when I went in,
I've seen the actual.
what is it you're looking for?
The map that was running about here.
What map?
Where he's going in Brazil.
Oh, it's always through in
You
the
put it
cover.
actually.
Yeah, they put it through in the cover.
Have you? Right, that's all right.
There's a book down there standing up in the cover.
I just it was that. Yeah. I'm going to Brazil.
So then, these 5 men were sitting, and then, this one said, I wouldn't have him back, he's drunk, not it. And then this man stood up and said, you need to be reinstated and give him back all the money he's lost with all these months he's been off.
So he got his job back?
So he got his job back.
So that may have been a lot.
Well, it had to be, who else could get your dad's job back, Paul? Your dad was drunk every day, went to work.
I know.
He deserved to be sacked.
Listen, that's proof there's a God.
Oh, it
If anything,
definitely is.
If you
Paul,
don't believe there's a God,
Paul,
that's proof there's a
You
God.
seen your
I never
dad.
said I didn't believe there was a God, I just said that people said that it was a bit far-fetched, that some of the
But
stories
then the
and
thing is,
people
if
believe.
you listen to them and be deceived because they say it's far-fetched, you'll listen and believe them rather than believe the truth because they're believing the lie. See, God says people will want to believe the lie, and the lie is people think there's no God, I don't see a God, look at all the destruction in the world and all blah blah. That's what they say. So they're believing the lie. But God says you have to believe the truth. And what it is you have to search for the truth to make sure, well, if there is a heaven and hell, I need to find out what's the truth. Is there a lie or is there a truth? Because you can't speak for all your friends, but then if you find Jesus and find there's a truth, then you've got to tell your friends because, you know, they're believing the lie. So the thing is, then you've got, if God does something for your life, then you need to tell them, and so they get saved, and so this is
And
how
so forth and so
and so
forth.
forth, and then so that we're all going to be with the Lord, and
Here's nobody.
hell's going to be empty and heaven's going to be full instead of hell being full, and
Haven't been up there.
that's true. So you know.
As your dad says to me the other day, he says, you know, this year, Ma, we've been in Florida. I got my job back, we've been in Florida, and I'm going to Australia on Sunday.
And that's all happened.
And
I mean,
that's
your
all
dad
happened.
only got saved in March last year.
Aye.
So
That's
God
true.
saved your dad in March, but March last year your dad gave his life to the Lord. In that first less than a year, he's done all that in the 1 year.
And you know the state
And you
your
know how
dad
bad
was
he
in, Paul.
was.
You're definitely one person, and myself, that knew how bad our David was. David was drinking himself
That's
to
right.
death.
He was drinking himself to death, and this is like, it starts like you're doing with your friends. It starts though they're all just having a good time, going to the
That's true.
disco and just having a wee drink and see who can drink the most and ha ha ha. And then 6 or 7 years
Sucked
down, they're sucked in
Sucked in.
to smoking, drinking, and their life's all a mess.
That's true, drugging and everything.
And drugs, and then having this girlfriend and that girlfriend or that boyfriend, and everything's all a mess, and their life just goes downhill and downhill and downhill.
That's true, there's nothing in a life like that, Paul. It'll end up in sadness.
That's right.
End up in sadness for you, Paul. Escape where you can, Paul. Following the Lord Jesus.
Yeah, better to know the Lord when you're
Yes.
very young
Yeah.
than to wait till your dad's age and try and find the Lord, because he went through all that misery.
Aye, you could have
40 years of misery.
40 years of
So
misery.
if you don't
Paul.
want 40 years of misery before you find the Lord, you find the Lord quick while you're young, so that you've not got 40 years of misery.
That's true.
And then when you do have problems, you can pray to the Lord and say, Lord, deliver me out of that problem. Answer my prayer about things. Bring a nice lady into my life that I'll marry the right woman, and I'll get a good job, and bless me, because you're a
So
child
Lord,
of the
to give
King.
you,
You're a
give you a
child of the
different job, Paul.
King. Yeah.
I mean, that's what Andrew said.
Aye, that's the Lord.
You become a
That's true.
child of the
Prove
King.
yourself.
King of heaven.
So What to say, prove yourself to me.
I would just say to Lord, I'd like a better job than I've got, because this job's rotten, I hate it. Get me a better job.
Get me a
That's all
better
you need
job,
to say to the Lord. And Paul, you don't know what He'll open up in your life. The wonders and the wonders that come along in life. And you just wonder how it all came to you. So there's a higher power there, Paul, who works on your behalf.
Oh, get me a better job, Lord.
Right? Ask the Lord to get you a different
Get me a better job.
and a better job than you've got. Take you out of that misery of hating going to work. There's nothing worse than hating work.
Nothing worse than having to go in depressed.
I know, I used to hate that myself. I did me in inland driving. I liked inland driving, going well in it, and I loved my job, Paul. But there were other jobs I had when I was a young kid, like when you. I just started to do it. There were a lot of jobs I hated to, Paul. But I had to go because of the money. And God's got a plan for everybody's life, Paul. You have to just live in that, keep His commandments. Keep His commandments.
You need to start reading the Bible. Pick up and start to read that. Because you're reading better.
The good book.
Eh?
And the good book. So what's the bad book then?
There's a lot of bad books going on. Bad books, but you just need to listen to your television and read your papers and find out
How bad it is.
how bad it is out there.
See Saddam Hussein get hanged.
Yeah?
Saddam Hussein get hanged.
I got hanged when I was in
I saw that. Did you? I saw
saw
that.
it in America, probably.
Did you? The whole thing?
Well, I saw him getting taken out and the thing put in his neck.
And then dropped.
Well, I never actually
So
Actually,
he'll be in hell now.
Well,
Huh?
if he didn't call on the name of the Lord, Paul, he'd be hell the man.
Yeah.
Kings and queens have been hell, Paul, if they're not called in the name of the Lord.
That's right.
Film
If the Queen was to
stars.
die and she doesn't know the Lord, she'll be in hell.
She would be in hell.
Film stars.
Those there's film stars, people that have never
That
actually.
poor lassie there that's went away to,
I
that
haven't
lassie
seen
that died,
She'll be in hell.
that lassie would be in hell if she didn't know the Lord, Paul.
And she'll be wishing she wasn't bothered.
I know,
She'll be thinking, today in hell she'll be thinking, I was bothering about millions of money.
I know.
And here I'm in hell.
And what can I give in exchange for my soul? Nothing, Paul. What can you give in exchange for your soul?
And our son collapsed it.
I know.
And you'll be in hell as well.
Well, if you didn't know the Lord,
That's
you'd be in
right.
hell,
Even
Paul.
if you're even at 19, you'll be in hell.
Yeah.
There's young people in hell that died with drugs or
Still a really weird story, that, isn't it? Her life.
Mm-hmm.
How she was. What was it? She was. Her son died like a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
He was only 20.
Same age as yourself.
Uh,
It's frightening, Paul. Called into eternity, not able to have the time to even say, Lord, save me.
yeah, because young people could die too. It's not about
Aye.
how long you live
Oh no.
and
How
I'll
young you-
find God when I'm 65.
Oh no. You might
And I've
have
lived,
time.
I've had a good life. That's what some people do.
No.
I'll do my thing, and then when I
Aye.
get to about 80 or 70,
Oh.
I'll get God in my life then. But then they might not live that
You'll
long.
get that chance, Paul. You might be snuffed out quick.
Because you could, you know, every time you're out on the road, death can come at any time.
scary, innit?
So this is it. If you were to be knocked down by a bus or suddenly have an accident at work or anything, all of a sudden you'll not have any time to say, God, save me. Because you'll be snuffed out like that and straight into hell.
Hit with lightning.
So that's how you need to do it way before.
So you need to make your peace with God, Paul.
So that you know I'm saved, and if anything was to happen to me
I'll be
today,
right into
tomorrow,
His presence.
I'll be straight with the Lord.
Right into the presence of God, Paul. And that's true.
Husbands see that big rift that was right through.
Right.
I think that's where the water up to the deep. That's what they think.
It says there was a flood, there was
I
a
heard that
flood.
in the God channel they're talking about it. They're talking about, you know, when it talks about the flood come up to the deep. They said in the bottom of the sea, well, on all the seas there's bits, but especially the Atlantic was big rift.
Yes, that's right.
With the mountainous region under the sea, that's right. I think that's where it split open and came up, and then it's going back together and it's made this big ridge, the mountains. See?
It's when you start looking at maps, what has become huge places out there. You know, 1 minute they're not huge and then you go.
In Fort Lauderdale is Tony Potts, Access Hollywood reporter and anchor. In Pittsburgh, our old friend Dr. Cyril Wecht, who performed the autopsy on Anna Nicole's son Daniel when he died 5 months ago. And returning in Fort Lauderdale, Susan Candiati of CNN. And in the Bahamas, Rusty Dornan of CNN. Katrina, based on what you've heard earlier tonight on this show, a lawyer who says, we'll hold up on the DNA, another lawyer who says, do the DNA, and
There's now a third person who says, well, I might be the father too, as well as perhaps 30 other people.
You'll be in hell, but you could have been in heaven with the Lord for eternity, where, you know, there's no death, there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no crying, whereas the people that are in hell
But
are in pain and torment and suffering and screaming and crying,
I
and
thought
there's
if you
no
die you don't
escape.
feel no pain.
Eh?
I thought when you die you don't feel no pain.
But your spirit leaves your body. This flesh will die and just go into the ground, but there's a spirit inside you, and that's what goes into hell. And that actual spirit in you is actually you, not just this arm and leg and head.
That's true.
That's what goes into hell. And I saw, we were watching a man on the God channel, and he died and went into hell. And he said he was only in hell 20 minutes. It was as if God, when he died, put him in there to see what it was like, and God brought him back out. And it took him a year to recover. A year.
How did
He was so terrified.
How did he die? How's he talking then?
He took some illness, and his heart stopped beating and he died. And he said the next thing, he was in hell and he could hear folks screaming and screaming and screaming, and he was terrified, and he saw demons. He saw great big angels, and then they said they were about 8 to 10 feet tall. He says, and they were horrible, and they came up and they were screaming at him. And he says when you're in hell, he says you've got no energy. He says he couldn't even stand. He was crawling on his feet, and it was pitch black, and he could hear screaming and screaming and screaming. And he says he crawled and he looked, and he saw away in the distance this big pit, and it was all, just heard all these folks screaming. And he said, you have no idea how awful it is. And he says, and then when somehow God brought him back, and he was back, and his body was back alive, and he was curled up like this, and his wife was like, what's wrong, and he was screaming and screaming and screaming. He said it was so frightening, so terrifying. It took a whole year to get better. It affected him so bad. And he wrote a book saying 28 minutes in hell, because he would just watch the thing would from a certain time to when and he said he must have only been in there 20 minutes. He said, and so frightening. He says I couldn't even speak about it. It was so bad. And he says the smell of sulphur, the blackness, the screams of the people. You could hear thousands and millions of folks screaming. Now you can imagine if you're there forever and ever. That's worse than the worst horror movie you'll ever see on TV. It's a thought.
Oh, well, you
But the thing is, if you turn and go, oh, I don't believe that, but then what if you end up there? You'll be screaming saying, why did I not listen to somebody? Why did I act and be foolish and not believe it? And see, another man said, the biggest question folk will be saying in hell, the minute they go to hell, is, if only I had listened, if only I'd gone to church, oh, if only I'd read the Bible, oh, if only I'd done that. That's the biggest scream they'll be screaming out.
open the curtains down.
want to be in hell screaming, if only I'd listened to my grandma, if only I'd listened to my papa, if only I'd listened to Auntie Andrea, if only I had just listened.
I told Paul about the Lord.
Yeah.
It's just a frightening.
But it's not frightening to think.
But darling, it'd be more frightening if you end up in hell. That'd be more frightening.
I wouldn't live to tell it, so
Well,
I wouldn't live to tell it.
no, but I would know that if you died without the Lord, you would be in hell, Paul.
Mm.
If you die without the Lord
If you
Jesus
got knocked
in
down
the
tomorrow on the road
Huh?
and you died, we would know you've gone into
I
hell, and
would
that
say
would be horrible
Paul's
for
went
us.
to hell because he's never took the Lord as his Saviour. I would know that, Paul. And there's your dad. Now look at your dad. Now you were a witness. You were a witness to how bad your dad was, Paul. Because you were with me many a time when you know your dad was completely out of it, Paul. Now look at your dad today. Now how do you think he's pulled himself out of that? That wouldn't be him. He didn't have the strength to pull himself out of that. That was God that done that for him, Paul.
Mm.
And your dad will tell you that tonight. Without God, he would never have been able to do that, Paul. And he heard the voice speaking to him. And he said, the voice says to him, I've got a purpose for your life. And he said, he looked going like this. Who's doing the talking? And never did it.
Right, isn't it?
That was, well, the thing, Paul, is, he was...
Scarred you for life.
Eh?
It scars you for life, that.
Well, Paul,
Somebody talking to you and there's nobody there.
Well, he said he had a voice saying, I've got a purpose for your life. Now that's not the devil, because he's not got any purposes for your life. He's trying to pull your life down. So it could only be God, Paul. And then he got sacked for his job because of drink. And then he got Uncle Melvin to go before that board, because there were 5 men sitting. He was going to a meeting, and he got Uncle Melvin to come. And Melvin says to him, I'm going in here to defend you, David, but you've got no hope of getting this job. Because he says, when the council sack you, especially for drinking, he says, you know, I've never heard of anybody getting their job back. And when he went in with Uncle Melvin, Uncle Melvin says, I'm going in to defend the defenceless. He says, because you're really, you know, you're not able to.
Mm.
So here,
We
when they went in,
I seen the action.
what is it you're looking for?
The map that was running about here.
What map?
Where he's going in Brazil.
Oh, it's always through in
You
the
put
cover.
those actually.
Yeah, they put it through in the cover.
Up here. Right, I'm sure.
There's a book down there standing up in the cover.
I just it was a. I'm going to Brazil.
So then,